Marco Collins. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you, Glenn?
Excellent, man. I'm doing really good, really good. You look fantastic, by
Yeah,
the way.
thank you. I have
Yeah.
a new cam. I
Yeah,
just
what
got
now?
a new webcam, and I'm very excited about it.
It looks great.
Yeah, man, it
Um,
has all kinds of weirdo effects too. It's a lot of fun.
that's awesome, man. That is awesome. Um, so I know you went through a health scare, you know, fairly
Yeah.
recently. Um,
Yep.
and you look fantastic, man.
Well,
Um,
thank you. I've changed my life pretty dramatically over the last 3.5 years.
yeah.
Made big changes to my health and stopped drinking, stopped doing drugs.
Hmm.
Only took 25 years to get there. Um, But yeah, I ended up getting testicular cancer, which was a
Oh
total
man.
mind fuck. Can we swear on? We can't
Yeah.
swear. I
Oh,
want.
please do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Uh. And yeah, man. I mean, I lost both of my parents to cancer, so
Hmm.
it's something that happens in my family. So when I got it, it really freaked me out, and I took it really seriously. And thank God I had stopped any kind of partying about a year or two prior to that. So, I think it made me my recovery a lot easier.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, man, it was fucking hell. And I'm
Yeah.
still, suffering the consequences of chemo. Like,
Right.
I didn't realize how much chemo ravaged your fucking body.
Oh, it's
And
horrible.
dude,
Horrible.
it's like I have the neuropathy now. I didn't know what
Hmm.
that was before, but all of a sudden I was at a film festival in San Diego and my hands and feet went numb. And I was like, oh, you've got back issues, which this is the old curmudgeon
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
appropriately named
back
show.
issues and I had cancer. Uh survival. I mean, that's what my sort of the theme to my life would be over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Um, but dealing with the neuropathy now, which is intense, and chemo just really the kind of chemo they gave me was pretty intense as well. And I had like 7 days, so I'd have 5 days, 7 hours a day in a row of chemo. And then
Hmm.
I'd have 2 weeks off of vomiting and nausea.
Oh
And then I
God.
start again. I did that for 3 months. And thank God the kind of cancer I had is not something, it's isolated. So it, spreads to a tumor in your gut. But I'm in full remission and have been for a year and a half now.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, with
That's good.
testing, nonstop testing. Um, but thank God it was probably if you were gonna get cancer, it's the easiest type to
Hmm.
beat. It's
Yeah,
just
I've known a couple of people who have got cancer multiple times, and the second time or third time they're like, "Fuck chemo." They're just like, it was harder to deal with than having the cancer.
yeah,
You
man.
know. Um.
It's just poison. And my body, I figured I've done every drug in the world. I'm cold turkey detoxed off really intense drugs. I figured you can handle this. You've been here before. Chemo ain't shit
Right.
until I had chemo. And
Right.
then, I ended up, I mean, there were a couple times I had to go to the ER because my white blood cells, my red blood cell, everything was fucked. I spent I spent a week in the hospital in the isolation wing at UW,
Wow.
getting antibiotics intravenously, like night and day. Every 4 hours, they'd hook up a new bag. Uh,
Wow.
it was intense, man. It was an intense struggle,
Man.
but I'm feeling a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, well, you sound better and dare I say look better,
Thank you.
than you did, 4 or 5 years ago even. So,
Well,
it's
yeah.
sometimes we need those weird little wake up calls, you know?
It's strange, man. People that I run into now are like, wow, you look so much better than you did the last 10 years of your life. And I mean, when you stop putting drugs in your body, things change.
Sure.
I stopped dyeing my hair. I let my natural hair color come out. And it
Hmm.
was, I mean, I look at pictures and think, oh, you've aged. But other people look and they're like, wow, you look very different. And
Right.
I just have to take other people's, uh,
Yeah.
I have to let that sink in a little bit.
Right. I mean, well, it's when you look in the mirror, you see something entirely different,
Oh, of course.
you
Of
know.
course.
And other people are like, "Oh, you look great," or "God, you look like shit," and like you can't really tell looking in the mirror,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, you don't notice. And I'll look back at pictures, or, I did that documentary and I look back at scenes in that doc and I'm like, ooh, there's one scene in the beginning of that movie where I wasn't sober for the entire shooting of that film. And it's obvious. Like
Right.
some scenes, I look like I've lost 20 pounds. Other scenes, I look like I've been up for a week, because I
Mm-hmm.
have. And um, I'm not real proud looking back at that film. I wish I had been sober filming
Mm-hmm.
that film, but I mean, it is what it is. It's a picture in my life. It's a moment in my life um, that's what was going on.
Right.
So
Um. Yeah, and it's a very. I finally watched it a couple years ago. Found it on Amazon Prime.
yeah,
Um, and I was, kind of amazed by the honesty, that you showed in that, because a lot of people wouldn't. They would
yeah.
try to gloss over the shitty parts, and you didn't do that.
Well, what's funny about that is my real dear friends that watched it were like, what a bunch of whitewashed pile of shit that is. Like, because we didn't go as far into the gutter as we could have. And that was a decision on my director's part.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Things were way worse than I portrayed them in the film. Um,
Hmm.
you know, there were certain terms that we used in the film that I'll just say, instead of saying I was smoking crack, I'd say I was doing cocaine. You know what I
Ah,
mean?
right.
Like we were
That's the old
talking
addict's way of like, see, it's not that bad.
right,
What I
exactly.
did wasn't that
So
bad.
it was tough, man, because when that film uh happened, my father was alive. My sister obviously is alive, and I just didn't want, especially with my dad, I didn't want a ton of shame coming down on him. I didn't want him to be embarrassed. I think he was a little bit anyway.
Right.
um, but I didn't want to be so forthcoming that we made a film that was shocking, or
Right.
that my father didn't even know about me, or, I had family that was alive. So I was totally down with not going into the gutter as far as we could go. So I
Hmm.
appreciate that you said that it seems like there was a level of honesty there, because the entire time I felt like I'm not being 100% honest,
Right. Well, some things you have to keep to yourself in a very small group of friends,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um,
One of my
yeah.
best friends was like, "Fuck, that's such bullshit, dude." I'm like, yeah, he's like, why didn't you just go for it? And I'm like, I kind of went for it. Like, you know, um, I was honest about a lot of stuff. I just wasn't honest about how far down I'd actually gone, how
Right.
how into the gutter I actually was at times. And you know, um, my roommate, or not my roommate, I'm sorry, my director wanted to get it on Prime. He wanted to get it, he
Hmm.
wanted a film that was um family, somewhat of a family oriented. Wanted to get it on Amazon Prime, let's put it that
Right.
way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh
I mean, the other extreme of that sort of autobiographical sort of thing is do you know Tommy Hansen?
yeah, I do.
Tom
Yeah,
Hansen. Okay.
because I went,
Have you read American Junkie?
you loved it, loved it.
Yeah. So that's the entire. I'm trying to get him on the show too, but speaking of a curmudgeon, man, he's just like, no, I just had kidney stone surgery, blah, I can't.
Yeah,
Before that it was something else, but
I love
he's
him, dude.
yeah, he's fascinating.
So you read the book?
Yeah, multiple times. Yeah,
Did you go to the performance, the play?
I missed that. I
Ah,
think I was out of town that weekend.
it was so good. And that's where I met Tom for the first time. I
Yeah,
might have met him back in the day though.
I'm
Or
sure. I'm
might have
sure. Yeah, yeah.
back in the day. But we actually were able to talk, and we've been online friends for a long time, and
Yeah,
um, I love the book, but I really love the play. Like the
yeah.
way the director laid out that his story was pretty intense, and he
Right.
was pretty fucking honest. Not only in the book, he said stuff that, yeah, there's that level of honesty. So I've been working on for the last 2.5 years a performance with the Seattle Rep,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been working with one of their writers, and we go over this on a regular basis. How honest do you want to be? How far along do you want to,
Right.
what story do you want to tell? And I've also been working on another movie for the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Once the doc came out, I got approached by a production company out of Los Angeles that wanted to turn it into a feature narrative film. So we've been working on that for a long time. It seems like forever to me. And finally, the guy that I've been writing with the Seattle Rep, we'd gone through two script writers and just couldn't really get the story honed. And then I brought in, the guy that I'd been writing with, Rob Knopp. You know Rob?
I don't know, Rob. No.
Rob played in Harvey Danger for a while. He was in a number of different bands. He's in a new band called Sevens, but he's worked with the Seattle Rep Theater forever.
Mm-hmm.
Great writer. Um, and so now he's writing for the film. And I haven't talked about any of this shit, by the way.
Oh,
I
excellent. Good.
kept it off my social media. I just, until we have something to announce, I feel like why even bait it, you
Right.
know? But I'm bringing it up now because when I sit down with Rob, I'm like, how honest can we be? Like, how intense of a performance? I've been going to Seattle Rep performances to watch some of these solo monologues, dialogues, and there's a lot of season pass holders who are a little bit older,
Right.
who maybe, some of the dialogue might be a little intense. Uh,
Well,
I swear a lot, so
yeah.
trying to figure out what that performance looks like, people,
I,
is interesting. Just walking that line, you know.
yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you know, I wouldn't worry so much. I mean, the rep has at least traditionally been very open to, some more not so mainstream sort of production. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, you
Yeah,
know. And I think the most important thing, of course, is to have that honesty to it, you know. And if you're writing something down and then a line comes to your head that normally you would be like, end with, motherfucker, and you don't put it in there, it's just not going to be as
it's not going to be the
honest.
same thing. I
Yeah.
agree, and especially if I'm performing, which the idea, shit, I don't want to like lay it all out right.
Right.
But the idea is, I'm kind of doing a radio show slash telling stories and playing records and some video content and interview content. I'm just giving it all away. Um, yeah, man, it's just, like the thing I loved about Tom Hansen's stuff is his is very basketball diaries. And I love that
Absolutely.
about it.
Yeah.
He talks about, dealing dope to Kurt. He talks about, you know, getting doing having gay sex for money. Like he
Hmm.
talks about some intense stuff.
Yeah.
And um right now that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, how guttural we go,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
Uh
there's a lot of stories like that out there that um, and there's sort of a dearth of actual writings about them. So there are all these people out there, like yourself, like Tommy, like, a bunch of people who went through this really dark, deep time.
Yeah.
And I think it's important actually for kids to read that in such a way that it's not romanticized.
Well, yeah, and there's
Hmm.
consequences to it. You
Right.
make those decisions and there's consequences. Um, you know, in a film, I feel like you can portray that edginess like, like I told Rob, like, let's go there for the film. I
Hmm.
mean, you know, um, my father's passed, my mother's passed now. I
Okay.
don't have everybody else can deal with the hardcore stuff. My
That's right.
sister
Yeah,
was
let it all out,
great.
man.
Yeah. So, for a movie, that's one thing. For the Seattle Rep performance that we've been writing, I'm sure it'll be a bit tamer. It's going to be probably a bit more aimed at the music side of things. But yeah, it's an interesting um, challenge for me.
Yeah. Well,
So,
another reason I like the glamour and the squalor. Jeez, it's hard to say that. The glamour and the squalor
yeah,
is you're basically explaining what a lot of people think that people who are in your position would be doing. Does that make any sense? So people would assume, like, hey, here's this DJ, he's extraordinarily well known. Obviously, he's partying with the rock stars and whatnot, and he's going to end up in this situation. Um, and that's why I think it's awesome that you put the squalor at the end, right? Because a lot of people would just see it as the glamour,
right.
and
Yeah.
maybe some only saw it as a squalor. But
Yeah.
putting them together is perfect.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the drug addiction and alcohol issues followed me for a very long time, and you know, uh, and fucked up my life in
Right.
so many ways that I'm still paying for and will pay for forever.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, there's definitely consequence to going out there that far, going out
Yeah.
on the edge that far. And
Yeah.
that is where the name came from. It was the name of my first radio show ever, which is ironic. It was a college radio show, and they loved
Hmm.
the name. We had a couple other names lined up for the film, and they just loved that name. And I came up with it just because musicians go through that. It's all everything appears to be so glamorous, but
Hmm.
then there's this other side of, having to do these shitty jobs to stay alive, having to,
Hmm.
live in conditions that just aren't sexy at all.
Right.
Um, you know, so it
Yeah.
worked for the show, and I felt like it worked for the movie too.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Yeah, there is that. Well, first of all, people don't realize how easy it is to fall from a hey, I'm doing a couple of lines on a weekend to hey, my entire life is revolving around this. Like it happens
Yeah,
almost instantaneously. You
yeah,
don't know it's happening either.
right.
So, or rather, I think you do. It's impossible to admit it to yourself,
You know,
right? Like you're doing an 8 ball now instead of a gram, and you know that
yeah, that things are so. I'm one of those guys that I never had a problem admitting that I had drug problems or that I was an addict. I wasn't in denial at
right.
all over that stuff. I just didn't want to stop. I uh, to me, I was obviously trying to find something and figure out something. Also, we have a long line of addicts and alcoholics in my family.
Hmm.
So genetically, it was already, handed down. Um, but there were moments I made choices. Instead of this amazing career, I'd rather spend. I made choices,
Right.
and um, and I honestly can't even say that I regret them. I um, I regret the way I treated people.
Hmm. Yeah.
People I love. I regret the destruction of relationships, which all that shit happens, man. When
Yeah, it
you're
does.
when you're in love with cocaine and drugs and alcohol and pills, you care very little about other people. And I lost a lot of people that I really loved.
Hmm.
So that's what I regret
Yeah.
the most. The career thing, yeah, I'm struggling now.
Right.
So, I'm trying to like kind of piece things together now, which is why I'm busting my ass on this other movie and writing for the
Sure.
rep and, trying to put together some sort of um, radio show or a podcast right now.
Hmm.
Trying to
Right.
get something going,
Yeah.
man.
Well, let's definitely talk about that one offline, okay? Because
Yeah.
I might have some interesting ideas for you for
Okay.
that. Um, kind of take music into a slightly different direction, you know? Because we obviously already have streaming radio and whatnot, and streaming radio stations, and like obviously, the end is one, or not the end. I'm sorry, oop, Freudian slip.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
KXP
Yeah.
is one of the originators of that, really.
Yeah.
But there are other ways, like kids nowadays listen to music in an entirely different way,
Right.
for example. But anyway, we can talk about all that offline. Um, basically, kids see everything in like these 6 second or 30 second clips.
Right.
Like that's what drives them in.
Yeah.
And it's why all these songs are basically not all songs, but a lot of modern songs nowadays are these very simple like 10, 15, 20 seconds intros that's repeated over and over and over and over and over throughout the song. Um, because that's how kids think.
Right.
It's like, okay, that
It's
catches my
not even so
attention.
much how kids think anymore. I can't read a book.
I
I've
can't either.
noticed that all of this digital shit that's coming at you a million miles an hour. I mean, I would say that I'm addicted to social media. Like,
But
and
definitely.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that addiction, but it does take away from my ability to concentrate and focus. I have a stack of
Yes.
books on my bookshelf back there that I bought that I want to read that I just haven't, I've gotten halfway through Lanigan's book and it's really difficult for me to focus.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm exactly the same way, man.
I used to
And
read ravenously when I was younger.
me
I
too.
love to read and I want to love to read again, but it's fucking hard, you
Yeah,
know?
it is. It, there's no instant gratification when you're reading, right? And I hate to boil it down to that, but that's basically what it is. You
Yeah.
have to take the time. You got to put in the work, right?
Yeah.
And it is super rewarding and it's wonderful. Um, but I'll find myself when I do decide to try to read again, um, I'm scanning. I'm not actually reading.
Right.
Like I'll read a sentence and then I'll be like 5 sentences later and have no idea what happened in between because my eyes are just like
Right.
those moving
One
all
of my
around.
biggest challenges is I love movies. So I watch a lot of independent films and movies that SIF releases.
Hmm.
And a ton of that shit is subtitled. So my biggest thing is I'm on my damn phone while I'm watching movies. I'm texting, I'm texting, and I miss chunks of films. I can't tell you how many times it's so hard for me to get through a subtitled film because I'm not focused and
Right.
I'm rewinding. Hold on, you missed that part. Hold on. Like that's a big challenge for me is that focus
Hmm.
even to put into art that I'm moved by.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a new world, man. It's a new
It
world.
is. It is. Um, and I recently just got over that where I'm able to actually watch like a full movie. Like it's been years. I just couldn't do it.
Have
TV
you watched
shows
a full movie without looking at your phone?
have.
It's so hard.
Yeah, I have. I have. Um, although my girlfriend made me watch a bunch of movies, or didn't make me watch. We kind of just ended up watching, um, like three super horrible movies in a row. And at one point, I look over, we're like right next to each other on the couch, and I look over, and she's on her phone, and I'm on my phone, and the TV is on, and we're kind of like
Why are we?
glancing up every once in a while, you know.
Well,
But I have, and she's gonna crack up when she hears this. I've got this thing about people talking when I'm watching anything. Just
right.
makes me crazy. You know, so it's basically if more than like two or three words are said, they're like just quick little interjections in between people in the movie talking. I'm okay
Yeah.
with that.
Okay.
Anything more, I'm just like, you know, because I'm trying to concentrate on what's going on.
Right.
So, yeah, she gets angry at me because she's like, part of the fun of watching a show or a movie is talking about it. And I was like, yeah, after, after you watch it, right?
Experiencing it after. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, babe.
Yeah.
Um, you know, letting out some of how the sausage is made, I guess.
Right.
Um, yeah. So, what have you been doing? Okay, you're doing oh my God, I almost said the end again. KXP,
Right.
right? And that's a regular thing, right?
It is. I'm on weekly. I'm kind of just doing fill-in stuff there. I don't have my own permanent show yet.
Hmm.
I'm doing fill-in stuff, so I'm kind of popping on during all different air shifts.
Hmm.
So nothing is super consistent. And I'm hoping that changes, but I am doing that. I've been filling in for Stevie Zoom, who
Okay.
is immune compromised, who doesn't feel safe coming into the station to do a show and getting
Right.
there and the whole 9 yards. So I've been filling in for him for the better part of 8 months, 9 months.
Oh wow.
So as soon as the vaccine hits and he feels safe, he'll be coming back. Um, but in the meantime, I've kind of been filling in for
Hmm.
Stevie.
Well, that's fun. I mean, it had been a little while since you'd done a radio show when you started doing that again, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It took me a while to get the hang of it again, especially because the KXP studios are complex. I mean, when
Yeah.
you walk in there, it's like a goddamn flying an airplane or a spaceship.
Right. I,
Like so many things going on and social media, and you've got, you're responding to texts and emails, and there's just a lot going on. It's nothing compared to old school radio.
right.
I mean, you just have to sort of get the hang of it.
Right.
Uh, and it's taken me a while. When I first went on the air, I was fucking talking all the time. Like
Right.
that DJ that would just keep talking and telling stories, and then I kind of learned, okay, shut the fuck up a little bit. Like you don't need to tell a story every break.
Right.
You can apply those old school radio ways without killing your audience. There's people that I'm a very polarizing DJ at KXP.
Hmm.
People either love me or hate me. There's very little in between. Uh, and I'm fine with that. I've definitely calmed down,
Hmm.
um, since I've been on the air more. And I got to credit KXP for really working to keep us safe. You know,
Right.
we work from two different studios, so we'll have one DJ in one. We never really have to come in contact with each other at all,
Oh
uh,
wow.
which is it feels like a very safe place to work.
Hmm.
Got to scrub down the studio when we come in. We got to scrub it down when we leave. I turn the air on in one of the studios just to air everything out when I leave.
Hmm.
We have pretty strict rules. It's very comforting to work at that place because I feel like people give a shit about their
Hmm.
employees. And that's refreshing.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
After
That's
working
great.
in commercial radio that didn't necessarily care about their employees.
Right.
So,
I mean, would you consider working in commercial radio again?
oh, of course. Yeah,
Okay.
I totally would. In fact, uh, yeah, I'm talking, there's,
Don't give out too much.
yeah, I'm trying not, I'm talking to some folks about doing something pretty cool.
Okay.
Um,
Excellent.
yeah. And we'll see when it pans out. Um, it requires me doing a bunch of work that I haven't done yet.
Hmm. Okay. Well,
So it's something that is probably going to happen in the next couple months
great. Yeah.
that I'm
Well,
excited about. Probably the biggest thing I've ever done, which,
perfect.
yeah, it's exciting. It's
Good.
exciting to me.
Well, Hopefully next time I have you on, it'll be like
Yeah,
your
yeah,
X at Stadia, whatever, Station
right,
X,
right.
whatever.
Yeah, and
Um,
if commercial radio is done right, I love it. I have to say though that working for a non-com like KXP is just, I mean, it's such a different vibe than commercial
mhm,
radio.
yeah,
Um, that you can really just get creative. You can do real contexted radio that you weren't necessary. I haven't necessarily been able to do in commercial radio,
mhm,
which is fucking exciting. But I have no problem with commercial radio again if it's done right, you know.
right,
So
yeah. I was just thinking, I've only done live radio twice, I think. And one time was to promote a company that I had. The company itself was very small, but I had a great PR firm. So they got me on a talk show. I can't think of the name of it. I think it was on WKAL in New York, and it was a talk show that had like it was a ridiculous membership or listenership, like 3 million people or something like that.
wow,
It was huge, and because then it was syndicated,
right.
from New York, and I got in there, and it was the night of their Christmas party.
Oh,
So I showed up,
geez.
and there's booze everywhere. I mean, there are people passed out, all over in the hallways and shit.
Ah,
And I I had to knock and knock and knock and knock and knock because I was supposed to come on at like 11 at night, I think it was. And their party had started at like 5 in the afternoon, so they were just wrecked. Everyone completely wrecked.
was the
And
DJ that had you on wrecked?
no, no, he was old school. Like he had been on the air for like 45 years,
Right.
like
Okay.
cool older guy. I wish I could remember his name.
Yeah.
Um, but some of his guests that were supposed to be on later had shown up at the party earlier, so they were wrecked, right? So he had no guests. He had an engineer that could barely stand up.
Ah,
Um,
that's awesome.
and this is my first time on radio, right? I'm supposed to do like, I think I was supposed to be on for like half an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
Just chit chat, whatever, about the company. And
Right.
um, we got to our first break, and he's like, "Well, how are you feeling?" I'm like, "Well, I feel pretty good. This is fun." The first like 5 minutes were terrifying, and then
Right.
just started talking. Forget that you're on the mic in front of you, just talk. And he said, "Well, good. You're my only guest for the night.
Oh my! How long were you on?
6 hours.
Oh, what? Holy crap!
6 hours."
Wow!
Um, and I never did get a recording of it
Oh man,
because I think the engineer. So they would have people randomly wander in the studio while we were doing the taping or the whatever the broadcast,
right.
and they would of course be like, "Oh man, I'm
Wish
so
I wish
fucked
wish
up,"
I wish.
like,
Yeah. Ah,
and of course the engineer is like, but he's too drunk, he can't hit the kill button, and they literally had a giant red kill button. It was fucking hysterical,
that's
but he's too
awesome.
drunk to even hit that. And the host is losing his mind. He's just like, "Oh my god," it's like it's his name on the line, if they get fined and whatnot. And he's like, "Fuck." But anyway, yeah, I spent 6 hours, and he started. He was so bored, or we were trying to find topics to talk about, and it was like, whatever. And he ended up calling a friend of his at like 4 o'clock in the morning who lived in Florida, and just I forget who he was, some music guy, and he was like, "Hey, so and so, I got this, Glenn Starchman in the studio with me," and he's like, "Who?" Like, who the fuck is that? He's like, "Oh, I think you guys might like each other." So we literally had a talk on the air, like getting to know one another.
Well, what
You
was
know,
your company again? It was a music. It was a music.
it was
What was it?
it was called Net Music, and it was digital distribution for indie labels,
Okay, that's right.
which is a great fucking way to lose money.
Oh,
Phenomenally great way to lose
didn't
money.
work, huh?
Yeah, just didn't work.
Uh,
Um,
that sucks.
it would have taken a lot of money to get it to the point to make money,
Okay.
right? Um, and boy, I could talk for a good hour about that whole thing.
Well, I kind of did
Having
a little bit of research on you before before
well,
our
good,
interview. So I read
good.
some stuff, and at one point you were going to partner with somebody, and then that partnership went south, right? Like,
Probably Audio Lunchbox is what you're thinking of.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, they were good guys, like super good guys.
Huh,
They were the only one. out of the whole deal who actually ever made money.
Oh well.
Because yeah, because we paid them a bunch of money up front,
Wow.
and then I couldn't raise enough to actually finish buying them off. So they got to walk away with the initial money I'd given them. So, more power to them.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so they,
Startups are hard. Startups are hard. I've worked
yeah,
for
they are.
two.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
it's basically all I do. Like everything I do is, in that realm. Um, and it's cost me, two marriages and, etc. But I
uh,
can't stop it.
I mean, sort of that entrepreneurial spirit, you can't really snuff that out, you know?
No, you can't.
It,
You can't.
why
It's
is a
like,
thing.
could you imagine like having to put a suit on and go and sit in an office? I mean, there's no way.
Yeah, that's not something, I could work in an office in a corporate scenario again, but there's no fucking way I'm wearing a suit. No
Actually, I
way.
love to wear suits. I haven't owned one in several years, but
I mean, if he had a cool old school Elvis Costello 80s looking suit,
right.
I think that might be kind of cool, but you know, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to wear a hoodie and jeans most of
Eh,
the
why not? Why not? I mean, if you can get away with it,
yeah.
why not? So we have to talk about the end, right? Like there's no getting away from it.
Sure.
Um, I uh, I have a funny story, and I honestly I don't remember if it was you or Scott Vanderpool. It was one of the two of you. I think it was Scott, but it might have been you. Um, and I may have brought this up via Facebook chat with you at some point, but um, I was baking bagels on Broadway. This is '92, I want to say. Um, and we worked graveyard, so we were bored out of our minds, and so we just put the end on, to play because you'd run out of tapes to play or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, and you two had just put out a new album, so it must have been what pop, whatever.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that I couldn't stand, and a lot of America actually couldn't stand. But anyway, it was either you or Scott who introduced the song the first time you played it on the end as there's some weird techno space music in that, or something along those lines, right? So you use the techno space music, and so my friend Jimmy and I, for almost every night for several months, we'd call up and hope to get through, and when we get through, we'd be like, "Hey man, yeah, can you play any of that techno space music?" And finally, whoever it was on the other end would be like, "Hey, fuck you!" Just like hung up. Will you guys
Wow,
stop calling us?
that could have been me. That definitely could have been me. Sounds like it might have been a Vanderpool thing as well, though.
It sounds more Vanderpool, I think,
Yeah,
but
because I was kind of into techno space music.
right,
That's kind of my jam at one point.
that's right.
Um, yeah, that we had fun. I felt like working at the end um, was so different the experience than people have now working for commercial radio. It's just
Hmm.
it was a different animal then. I worked for a company that gave me freedom to do things, and I had a boss that trusted me. Uh, he didn't trust me in the beginning, trust me, but he ended up trusting me. So we were able to do some really cool things, play some cool records that nobody else did, help break some bands that might not have ever been
Right.
heard before. And it was just, I always looked at the end as being, you know, I treated the end like it was an A&R source, like there was no reason, or like it was a record label.
Hmm.
And the bands that we played were bands I was signing. And I tried to, help develop those bands even outside the station,
Hmm.
so that it paid off for us. Smaller bands, I would like try to put them on bigger bills. If we had them in rotation, I'd try to, make sure they were playing Endfest. I'd make sure they were, that they got the kind of attention that you would think commercial radio would, deliver for them.
Hmm.
Um, and I was lucky. We were lucky that we started doing radio at a time that everything was about to explode. And the
Right.
company I worked for sort of knew that, Sub Pop had sort of laid the foundation.
Hmm.
And the bands, here in town laid the foundation, and we were just, it was the perfect storm, man. Being here at the right time with them, allowing us to have freedom. I always also felt like the end was commercial radio, but we were kind of a cross between more of a college format
Right.
where we could
Definitely.
play new and weird shit and play it a lot, you know.
Right. Right.
So it was a different model, definitely a different thing than commercial radio is now.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Which, you know, it is what it is. Things change. Um, I've always felt like commercial radio could incorporate more of that, supporting the local scene, supporting small bands, helping build artist careers.
Hmm.
And I'm just not sure commercial radio looks at their role as being that.
Right.
um, their
Well,
role for them is something different.
it's definitely an industry that needs to, reimagine itself, right? Um, and I know there's some like, like KXP, they're even though they're not commercial radio per se, they definitely play with the big boys, you know,
Yeah,
and they like I said, they spearheaded basically the entire, online radio broadcast thing,
yeah,
whereas a lot of people before were they'd pre-record a show and then they'd put it up there.
right,
KXP is like,
right.
hey, it's just live, tune in and listen.
I had no idea how many people listen all over the world until I did a late night show. And that's when the time zones change, right? So
Oh yeah,
when I'm on at midnight, people are just getting to work in the UK.
right.
So I have more, so if I'm doing a 10 p.m. to a 1 a.m. shift, those 10 p.m. to midnight hours that you would think more people would be listening
Hmm.
are rough. 11 o'clock is rough. All of a sudden, clock strikes midnight, and I'm getting a million not a million, but I'm getting a
Right.
lot of texts and emails from the UK. And the
Hmm.
moment I even put that out there and start reading, so and so from New Zealand, so and so from Germany, so and so from Paris is listening and wanted to hear this, they just start flooding in. And
That's great.
it's an eye-opening experience. Once I went on the air and said, hey, I was talking about being tired and I was doing a late night shift. Somebody wrote me back. It was like, we're just waking up. You saying you're tired doesn't help us start our day. And I was like, wow, okay. So I read that email on the air, and then the flood of emails from all over the world came in. And it really opened my eyes that KEXP has developed this worldwide listening base that's incredible.
Right.
Like, I feel like KXP is more than a radio station. It's almost become like a collective in a way.
It has. Yeah.
Um, sort of a worldwide music collective. We do broadcasts from all of these different cities all over the world, and we're only stepping that up. I mean, COVID took us back a couple notches, but
Right.
we're our plans. The evolution of KXP is going to be very interesting over the next decade.
Yeah.
People are going to be very surprised at some of the plans KEXP has.
I can't
Um,
wait. I
oh, it's
think that's great.
exciting. It's really exciting. It feels, honest to God, it feels like when we were doing the end, like we were kind of inventing as we went. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We just
Hmm.
kept doing it and trying
Right.
new things, um, and this feels a lot like that.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, people are willing to get weird at
Uh,
KXP, and I
Perfect.
love it. Yeah,
So, speaking of getting weird, um, you've probably talked about or been asked about this, ad nauseum, but um, the Pearl Jam versus scenario.
yeah,
So, I I immediately thought when I heard about it, for somehow I missed that. I don't know how, I mean, being in Seattle and at that time and whatnot, but I, I I didn't even know that had happened up until like a few years ago. right about the time. Well, yeah, the time I saw the glamour and the squalor.
Yeah,
And I probably heard about it, but you know,
yeah,
um, had blocked it out or whatever. Anyway, and so I was thinking about that today. It's like, you sort of are like the spiritual ancestor of what's his name, Alan Free, right? Like that I think if he had lived in the nine or been doing radio in the '90s, that's the sort of shit he would have pulled,
right.
right? Just like completely outrageous and just like, well, fuck you, I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah, looking back, um, we did it because it was exciting. It brought attention to the station. It brought attention to the bands.
Hmm.
So many record labels would say to me, you know, we have to pretend that we're mad at you,
Hmm.
with our bosses, but you've created the biggest buzz around this record because you've leaked it. That,
Hmm.
a lot of labels would be like, now we have to deal with all the other inter stations nationally,
Hmm.
stations in your market being pissed off that, we have to jump through hoops to appease them now.
Right.
But thanks. You
Right.
created a buzz.
Exactly.
Um, and yeah, we leaked that record. So Kurt Cobain is in my documentary. They found a clip of him talking about me leaking in utero. And I'd never seen that clip. All these years, I'd never seen this interview.
Huh.
And he was, I remember he and Courtney calling me being super pissed off that I got a copy of the record that weren't the final mixes by any means. And that we were playing these rough Albini punk rock mixes
Hmm.
without the strings in them, without the polishing and the mixing
Hmm.
and whatever. And then Kurt was kind of like, Kurt thought that it was sort of a punk rock move to pull, um, and thought it was somewhat humorous. But what bothered me about that is I thought, man, were we exposing, were we playing shit that like didn't sound good? Like, were we playing,
Sure.
the spirit of the vibe bigger than the music? Like, should we have respected the fact that maybe that music wasn't ready to be heard then? Um, I look back on that, dude. I look back on a lot of shit in my life and think, yeah, maybe I would have done that a little differently, or maybe I wouldn't have. You
Right.
know, um, I wanted to be a friend to the artists. I didn't want to piss off bands.
Right.
Um, so when I saw that clip of Kurt talking about that, I was like a little embarrassed,
Sure.
that I mean, because my intentions there were to, it wasn't about blowing Nirvana up, it was about blowing us up,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know.
No. Yeah. I get that. I get that.
So, you know,
Well,
sure fucking fun to do though, man. I
of
mean, like
course.
that shit, like leaking records back
Uh,
in the day was a really big deal because we had to really prepare for it. We had to do it
hmm.
right. We had to keep it a secret. We had to put promos on the air that said, listen this Friday at 5 p.m. The reason we picked Fridays to leak stuff is because all the lawyers had gone home, all the
Right.
record labels had gone home, so
Hmm.
nobody was there to stop us.
Right.
And this was kind of pre cell phones when we started doing this. So the way that labels stopped you was either calling you and saying you have to stop,
Right.
or faxing a cease and desist notice from the attorneys.
Right.
And, so we would unplug the fax machine, so we couldn't get
It's awesome.
faxes.
I love it.
And then you could busy out all the lines so
Uh-huh.
that people get busy signals when they're trying to call the request line or the offices. So, I mean, we went to great lengths. We locked the building. When I did the Pearl Jam record, I went down and talked to the security guy and said, listen, there's something happening here. and you cannot let we're doing it after 5 p.m. There's going to be people that are going to try to get into the building. You cannot let people in. And he ended up letting Epic Records rep in anyway because she bribed him with CDs and concert tickets. So he let her in. She fought her way in. She tried kicking the front door of the station open. I mean, the shit was serious.
Oh yeah.
I do remember I did this with the Pearl Jam record. I knew she was coming. I knew she was getting closer because my boss called me and said that she was pounding on his door and then walking around his home, pounding on the windows.
Wow.
Like it was a big deal to record labels to leak a record as early as the end leaked records.
Mm-hmm.
So he said that he had turned all the lights off in his house and was hiding. And he was calling me from his basement going, she's still outside. So she's going to be coming. And I'm hiding in my basement. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. It's so much fun, man. He's calling me on the air on the hotline. Nobody has that number. And so what I did is I record when you play the stuff on the air, you're not just playing it from a cassette. Digital files didn't exist. You are playing it. You put them on carts, these little 8-track carts, all the songs. So I had a stack of the whole record, and I knew she was coming in, and I knew she would take those fucking carts. So I made a fake stack and put all the names on carts and put them up on the thing. So she walks in, she's like, I'll kill you, give me this shit. I'm like, you got me, take them. She takes the carts. I wait for about a half hour to make sure she's all the way back in West Seattle at this point. And then I just pull out the carts and start again. We just had a good time, man. We had a good time. It was fun. We got a lot of shit, and it was fun,
Yeah. I mean, did anybody lose their jobs over it, or is it
nobody lost their jobs? I think my boss talked to more CEOs and label presidents than he probably wanted to.
Right.
He hid from those calls, but
wow.
Shit that I've done. And I do remember I was in San Diego. This wasn't the end. One of my favorite radio moves ever is I was working at an alternative station in San Diego called 91X, and we we were a building. Clear Channel had a building that attached to ours. So Clear Channel ran their station, all their stations out of their spot. We had our spot. So the record rep was like, hey, I've got Pink coming to the top 40 station to tape something. We're going to do a video viewing and I'm catering it. Do your employees want to come? And I was like, yeah, our employees would love to come. She's going to be there. Oh, fantastic. I'm a fan of Pink, first of all. And I was like, would she go on the air with me? And this label rep is like, you want her on an alternative station? I'm like, yeah, I do afternoon drive. I'd love to have her on, all the while planning every move. And,
oh no.
Yeah. So I was told the morning show on the big top 40 giant station is taping something with her for the next morning. So whatever I do, I can't scoop them. I have to also tape mine that'll run after theirs because, of course, they get exclusivity to Pink, one of the biggest artists for them.
Right.
So I was on. I had already met her earlier in the afternoon at the video thing, and we hit it off in a big way. So I knew this was going to go over. And I kept like fucking with her, going, "I've got something planned for you. It's going to be fun." Mm-hmm. And she loved 91X. She loved the station. She had listened to it. She loves reggae. She's got one of the best rock voices I've ever heard. Like raspy, really? Just real, like bluesy, amazing voice. I had heard all this acoustic stuff that she had done with Tim from Rancid. So I reached out to Jason Mraz, guitar player. And I was like, hey, the night before, I'm like, can you learn this song just like and show up at the
I
studio
love it.
tomorrow? Like, can you just learn this one song? He's like, no problem, man. Shows up at the studio, is waiting. Pink comes in. My assistant goes and locks the door. So she's locking the label out of the studio. And the label can't totally hear what's going on in the hallways. And so I have Pink on. I haven't told Pink I'm gonna do this. And she knows
Perfect.
something's coming. And she had had a couple cocktails beforehand,
Hmm.
and all the label folks are in the hallway, and they've already taped the, or maybe they hadn't even taped it with the top 40 yet. So I go live. I go live. I'm gonna
Love it.
scoop those motherfuckers first of all, and and I get on. I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, I had been teasing my audience for 3 hours that this pop star was going to be on. People were guessing and had people calling in saying, who is it? Britney Spears? Like, who do you have? Like, just I knew it would create some fucking controversy. So I
Right.
had her on and I'm like, listen, first of all, nice to have you here. Let's explain why you're here, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you know, what I'm a fan, and I don't think people realize how great your voice is. You know, pop stars, people think that's all made in the studio, but
Right.
you've got the pipes. I know you do. I've heard you do acoustic stuff, and so what I'm wondering is, this is my friend. This is my friend here who plays with Jason Mraz, Pete.
Hmm.
Would you be willing to sing live and prove to my audience that you've got a voice? And
Hmm.
she just looks at me and she's like, live on the radio at 5 p.m. at drive time in San Diego. And she's like,
Right.
wait, all of this? And you just want me to sing? She's like, dude, this is what I signed up for. And
Oh, I love
so
it.
he launches into this fucking song, no rehearsal at all.
Hmm.
And she belts this song out on the air, no effect
Wow.
on her voice. The label is pounding on the studio door, like looking at me like, you are dead. You are dead. Because not only did I go live,
Right.
91X is 100,000 watts, I got an acoustic set out of Pink. And she just shredded this set.
Oh
And
God.
I mean, the most bluesy, beautiful. She was just cranking it out. And the whole time I'm looking at my assistant and I'm like, fuck, it's happening. Like, we didn't know if it would happen. I just thought, I'm going to
Oh,
do this. If she says no, she says no.
right.
But because she had a couple cocktails in her, she said yes. And it was one of the most, that was probably my favorite radio moment in my career. And it caused more political shit with our station. And fucking the label president threatening my boss. Like, the calls were so intense. They were, threatening to never do anything with us ever again with any of their artists, and blah blah. It was heavy, but
Wow.
the greatest part about it is our cluster. Everybody was waiting to see if it would happen because we had kind of planned it for a couple nights, and my boss
Right.
was like so ready to see if I could pull this off.
That's
Anyway, long
great.
story short, I love doing that kind of shit on the radio, man.
Yeah.
I really enjoy like pulling stunts on the radio that pay off for the listener.
Again, you're an Alan Free, right? I mean, like
Yeah,
you got that blood in you somehow.
I like it. I just think
Um,
it's fun. I'm competitive and I like doing shit that's, oh, and then the top 40 thought for sure that the label had planned it with us, because how would a
oh.
station ever get her to sing acoustic? Like, that just would not happen on the fly. The label had to be in on it, and
Wow.
Pink knew what was happening. So that top 40 station stopped playing all Pink records. Like, it was, oh yeah.
Wow.
And then what we did is we put a promo on the air villainizing the top 40 that stopped playing our records. Like, we're really sorry. We've apologized to the station. We just made them look like douchebags. And it was like
Right.
so much fun. So
Oh
much
my God,
fun.
that sounds incredible. and you would think, of course, everyone would be mad at the artist, but of course, no, they're not. It's like the label and the radio station, like what, like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
the
they
artist can
get
do it all
mad at
wrong,
her. She's
right?
they handle her with kid gloves. In fact, when she got off, she paid me the biggest compliment. She was like, "Wow, that was fun." I go, "You realize we're in a lot of trouble for this." She goes,
Right.
"Yeah, who cares? Do it anyway." That's always been my thing.
Sure.
And I'm like, "Well, I'm glad you feel that way because I'm sure we're both gonna get in some, we're gonna get in some shit." And when we were done and off mic, she was like, "That was so fun. Thank you so much."
Right.
And she was laughing during the singing while she was singing. It was just real and
That's so
raw
much
and no
fun.
effects and awesome. And she was like, I was on Ryan Seacrest's show earlier, and it was nowhere near as fun as this. I was
Right.
like, that is the best compliment you could ever get from an artist.
I
You
still don't even know who Ryan Seacrest is.
don't know who he is?
I see his, not really. I mean, I've
Dude,
seen his name.
yeah, he's the new Dick Clark. He started the Kardashians.
Oh,
He's a
horrible.
part owner in E Network. He
Oh
hosts
man.
American Idol. Um,
Well, you just explained three reasons why I shouldn't know who he is.
yeah,
So,
you don't care. Yeah.
um,
Um,
I've
he's
seen
a
him.
big wig.
I've seen him like be an MC for stuff, but I still don't know. I didn't know up until now anyway
Yeah,
why he was famous.
yeah. He's been around for a while. He's doing all the New Year's Eve things that Dick Clark used to do. Um, he's
Hmm.
kind of the host that you go to for any sort of big top 40 things,
Wow.
events.
All right. So I
I'm
only have a
sorry, that
couple more
story took
things.
forever, man.
What's that?
I'm sorry, that story took forever.
Oh no, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this, right? I don't like the interview style at all. It's more of just like talking because
Yeah.
interviews go sideways, man. You ask a question and then you're like, oh shit, well now my follow up doesn't work, and that follow up doesn't work, and that follow up,
Right.
and you end up, in my opinion, you end up with more dead air that way than if you just kind of wing it,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
agree.
Like I do like a handful of bullet points, you know, that I have sitting in front of me. Um, but most of the time I don't even look at them. They're just like just in case there's that awkward dead air. I was like, well, I'm going to be on with a DJ. He knows how to handle dead air.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just in case I falter, he's going to jump in with a story or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yep.
Um, and I don't know what your schedule is today, but I only have a couple more things to talk about, but we can keep
Okay.
going as long as you want.
Yeah.
You just let me know, give me a signal,
Okay.
flip me off or something like that, and then I know to start winding down.
I probably
Um,
got another 20 minutes.
okay, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. That's about right.
Cool.
Um, so especially at the end, you had the opportunity to break a bunch of bands and or at least be the first to play certain songs or whatnot. I have two questions related to that. One is, what was the most surprising breakout that you saw? Like a band that you thought was great, obviously, because you were playing them, but you were surprised that it became popular.
Big as it did. Beck. Definitely Beck.
Yeah, I
Uh,
would agree with that.
we got Loser. A buddy of mine who just texted me, we're still really good friends, worked for a record label in LA, but we had such a great relationship that he ended up working other people's records to me. He would be like, "Yeah, hey, by the way, here's my records, but also this record on this label." So he would buy me shit and he would send me shit. And, those are the kind of people I really wanted to connect with because their agenda is just, dude, play good shit, break new cool shit. Like, he an alliance to uh an ethic. That's why we're still really good friends.
Hmm.
So he sent me this 12-inch single he bought at Aaron's in Los Angeles, and I got it, and I was like, "Holy shit! This is like, I mean, it's like a folk artist with Beastie Boys like beats behind him. Like this might really
Hmm.
work. This Loser thing." So I'm literally playing it on the vinyl, and I still have that vinyl.
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
on the needle actually playing record on the air, and people started reacting. So then we started playing it, all day, and people just started flipping out. Now Beck had not even inked his deal with Geffen, so
Wow.
the Geffen rep, who signed Sonic Youth, and Mark Cates signed Sonic Youth at Hull, and had worked with Nirvana, was like, "Hey, is this song really working for you guys?" And I'm like, "Not only is it working, it's the most requested song on the station. We're moving it into
Wow.
power rotation, um, from the vinyl." And this was when my boss started trusting me. Honestly, everything really started changing the moment we broke back. So we started playing it. It blew up for us. Stations around the country were listening, or looking at what we would add, what we
Hmm.
started playing at the station. Geffen was just barely getting the deal together. And we decided to fly back up to do a couple shows because the audience was flipping out. People in Seattle loved that fucking song, but we had only played one song. And
Right.
so we flew back up. I booked him two shows. I booked him a show at the Croc, and then we booked an all ages matinee the next day at the OK Hotel.
Hmm.
And it was an awesome experience. He was nervous as hell. He had a little drum machine. Um, oops, hold on one sec. I have very old neighbors, and
They're
uh,
hearing you.
yeah, I just help them out. And this morning they called me because the 90-year-old man had fallen on the ground. They don't have
Oh.
kids or anybody around them, so
Hmm.
I've become friends with them, and I just try to help them out. I had
Oh,
to
that's
go over there and
nice.
pick him up off the floor, and
Oh, that's
ah,
nice.
we're getting
It's
old.
nice.
Fucking makes me super nervous when I see what these folks are going through. And I'm
Yeah, no
trying to
kidding.
get them vaccinated at the same time. Getting an appointment to get vaccinated is
Hmm.
impossible these days.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is.
I'm having to jump through hoops and call in favors and all kinds of shit. It's
Yeah,
getting
I
brutal.
I haven't even been able to get a test, like much less a vaccine,
Oh, you haven't?
you
Have
know.
you tried to get a test?
I have, but the way that they have things set up, is that especially like with Walgreens or whatnot. I live up in Edmond, so I don't have as many
What county is
outlets.
Edmonds?
Snohomish.
Okay.
Um, and every time I'd go, you get like a 3 day window,
Oh, okay.
and they're always full by the time I look at them.
Okay.
And you can't go further than that. So it's like, today is Wednesday, so they'd show like Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
Right.
and then it'd be
No,
full.
I don't know if they have this in Snohomish County, but in King County, they have there's a service that you go on and you fill out. It's a county thing. You go
Right.
in, you fill out a little thing. They deliver a kit to your house same day. So a company delivers the kit. They drop it off on your porch. You do the sample. You stuff the Q-tips up your nose. You put them in the test thing. Put it
Right.
back in a box, back in a bag. You put it out on the porch, and same day they come and pick it back up, and you get your results online within like 24 hours.
Wow. Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
I don't know if they have that in Snohomish though.
they don't.
It's
They don't.
free.
I should have my girlfriend do that though, because she lives like literally just inside the King County
Okay.
border. Um, but yeah, for me, I'm just like, well, I'm still alive. I haven't gotten super sick yet,
Yeah.
so um,
Have you felt
hopefully
like you might have had it? Have you had?
late January. Yeah, even
Wow.
though supposedly that was before it should have hit the U.S., but
Huh.
I was really sick. I mean, super super sick.
Wow.
Um,
Similar symptoms?
yeah, I would say so.
Huh.
I didn't lose, smell or taste.
Right.
Um, although I'm a smoker, so that's relative. I never really taste anything. Um, but yeah, super sick. Not like hospital sick, but sick enough that I was miserable. for like 2 or 3 days.
Shit.
So I don't really know. Um, and here's a funny thing, man. So every time I go to like put up an ad up to like promote one of these podcasts,
Yeah.
it has to go through Google review, right? And so because they want to make sure that I don't talk about sensitive topics or anything like that. Well, COVID happens to be a quote sensitive topic.
Oh.
So it's funny, like I was like, oh, I finally have an episode where we haven't talked about COVID. And then you're at the very end.
Damn, I have to drop
Uh,
that on you.
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Um,
But
yeah, you guys should definitely take advantage of that. I think it's still available for King County.
right. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I'll look into it.
yeah, do it at her house.
Yeah.
Literally, they deliver the test same day, pick it up same
Hmm.
day. You know, go
Wow.
spend the night at her place and get the
Yeah,
test done.
that's a great idea.
If you have symptoms, no reason to do it if you don't
Right.
have symptoms.
Exactly.
But
Yeah,
it's a way to not have to go to the hospital or to the pharmacy or to wherever.
that's right.
Um,
That's
you
right.
know,
All
so
right. So COVID is depressing. I don't want to really talk about
it's
it.
rough.
From COVID on the restaurant industry in Seattle, right? I mean, it's brutal,
Oh yeah, it's
absolutely brutal.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's sad to see places closing down, man. That
it's very sad,
yeah.
you know, and who knows what's going to happen. Well, I already popped the COVID cherry, so might as well just continue going here. Um, it's yeah, they will outright deny any sort of promotion for videos. Like one of them, the word COVID is used exactly once,
Ah,
and it was nothing bad at all, just like
right, right.
mentioning COVID sucks or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully we pull out of all of that. Marco, I know you got to run. I got one last question for you.
Sure.
So I asked you about your most surprising breakout. What's the inverse of that? The one that you
Uh,
were like, I know this is going to go, and it just
I mean, there
fucking
are
flatlined.
tons of those. I mean, to be able to you know have achieved success with certain artists, you have to throw 100 artists against the wall and see if they stick. That's such a weird analogy. Artists anywhere. But I tried very hard to break other artists that didn't happen. Um, I'm not ashamed that I played any artists. There were a lot of artists I thought were going to be massive that just weren't. Let me think. I mean, we played the hell out of Super Deluxe and made Super Deluxe a big deal in the Northwest. But they didn't really take off nationally in a big
No,
way.
they didn't.
Um, but it didn't matter to us because they were playing huge shows here.
Hmm.
They wrote songs that did well with with the audience. Um, but there are a million small bands. Poster Children, I thought were going to be massive. Let's see. I thought Mudhoney was going to be massive. When I
Yeah, I
saw
did too.
at the end, I thought they'd be way bigger than Nirvana
Hmm.
because they were way bigger than Nirvana at that time.
Yeah,
And I just thought they
absolutely.
were poised to take over the world. I was a huge Mudhoney fan. I'm
Yeah.
still a huge Mudhoney fan.
I was a giant Blood Circus fan,
Oh, you
and
were? Okay. Wow.
I I've never understood why they didn't take off huge. Like
Yeah.
they were great. In fact, I'm having one of the guys on soon. We're having scheduling issues.
Oh,
Um, and I remember one time talking to Indino about Blood Circus, this is 3 or 4 years ago, and he's like, the common refrain from Sub Pop, that's the worst selling album in Sub Pop history.
ah,
I'm like, well, so, you know,
they're
that
proud of
doesn't
that
mean,
shit, though. They're proud of that shit.
yeah, they are, of course, of course. And one of the
Remember
guys
the
is running
fluid?
a, what's that?
Remember the fluid?
I love the Fluid,
Me too, man. Me
but
too.
they and I've said this many times on a couple of the Facebook groups like that. Pacific Northwest Music Archives and whatnot. There are a couple of those interesting groups, but every once in a while somebody will post a picture of the Fluid, and I'll be like, yeah, the best Seattle band that was not from Seattle,
Yeah,
right?
totally. Absolutely.
They were
Everybody
incredible.
thought they were too for a long time, which is really
Yeah.
what were they? Phoenix? Where were they from?
I'm trying to
Denver?
remember. I think they were Denver.
Okay.
I want to say they were Colorado.
Okay.
Um,
That sounds about right.
yeah,
That
I
sounds
mean,
about
and let's face it, Denver is basically the southeast version of Seattle.
right.
So,
Right. I've still
I'm
never
sorry.
been to Denver.
Yeah, southeast. Is that right? Whatever. Southwest. I'm sorry. I was,
Yeah.
you know. Um, yeah. So, Marco, I'm gonna let you go. I know you're like right
Yeah,
at the
man.
end of
Thank you very
your
much,
time.
Glenn. This was fun.
Hey, I think it's a lot of fun, man, and I want to hear about your updates about your monologue, especially because that sounds
Yeah,
fascinating.
I'm
And
excited about it. COVID really fucked us. We were gonna launch this year or premiere this year, and we'd put a
mhm,
lot of work into it. But I gotta say, honing some of those stories was really, really fun because I dug out stuff that I had forgotten about, um, that I've never told before, nowhere.
wow,
So there's really the Seattle rep thing is really exciting. And hopefully this vaccine takes care of shit and we're able
yeah,
to do live music and live theater again.
yeah.
So
I think we will. It's just going to be an entirely different game,
yeah.
you know. And knock on. I have no wood anywhere near me, but hopefully it all works out.
Okay.
Marco, hey, you're a gentleman, man. You're looking great.
Thank you,
So,
Glenn.
hey, thank you
Thanks for
so
having
much,
me.
man. All
Yeah.
right, we'll talk later on.
All right.
All right, buddy. Bye.